Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure, for real. I'm not even feeling it. I think how I would like to start it is as we're talking about conversion practices, and especially the ways that they come in. You mentioned non-religious, especially. So for me, I think the sentence, though in high school, like you'd have those things where it's like English no nambiwa haya. This is the sentence. Write a full story with it. If I was to make somebody write an essay about this, I think my sentence would be: conversion therapy opens up queer children to abuse in schools.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I think that's where I would start from, to be quite honest. When I think about conversion therapy, Ata Kabla, the first movie I ever watched when Leona Mtoki like was Jikam or something like that, or hearing a story like that, the first instances for me, I feel like nakumbuka the two few out queer kids who I knew in school, the interactions they used to have with some of the teachers or some of the older kids. When I was a kid, I don't think nilikuwa nimeangalia, but looking back, I'm like, something was off. Something was off there. I think, I don't know, homophobia leaves like queer kids very vulnerable to predators. What do you think about that?
I think when we were young, there was something about like everyone else around queer kids clocking their queerness, and that a lot of times caught them off guard because they had no idea. You just had like this homosexuality energy sleeping in you, but everyone else around you could clock it. And because they saw it before you, like there was no preparedness there, and it always kind of like seemed like something that they were like wanakwekelea because you didn't know that, you were not acting on it. You just you were just like a tomboy looking kid, and even sometimes not. You could just be a feminine kid, and everyone was clocking.
I'm like, I don't understand why
why do you mean that? Exactly. So I feel like that a lot of times left people to kind of like fend for themselves. It's like taking someone and their queerness and throwing them in the deep end. Now figure it out. Yeah,
that's so real.
Yeah, and then you have,
even doesn't allow people to self-define.
Yeah, for sure.
So unaanza kupanishiwa vitu zenye wewe mwenyewe hata huelewi. You don't even have the language for it. You don't know what a lesbian is. You don't know what gay is.
That is true.
But you're facing homophobia.
Yeah, and I can just imagine like all the kids that were maybe, let's say, girls who are tomboys who are not necessarily queer.
Yeah.
So you have to like defend yourself. You're a lesbian,
Yeah.
So why all of that?
I always wonder, and I always wonder, like, especially with the way that boarding schools are set up, teachers and people in authority have so much power over, like, the way that kids move. It's so worrying that there's usually, like, queer kids, the very way, like, any marginalized children are marginalized in general, right? Sure. So already I feel like our school system sets them up for abuse. But then specifically marginalized kids, like queer kids or disabled kids, they're left in the margins of kuashule, like for example, if you're like a queer boy in a boys' school, that isolation you usually feel because that's what wameanza kuclock akoka kitu kako whatever, and they're isolating you. There'll always be, you'll never understand that one teacher who's giving you too much attention, you won't have that like language. You won't have that language to be like, attention is not. And then that same teacher, he'll be like, people already know this boy is gay, so maybe he feels like nobody will believe you even if he was to make some random moves on you. I think it really leaves kids at a level of confusion. Because honestly speaking, me when I was a like isolated queer kid, I feel like some of the teachers who, and I never had like an inappropriate experience, so that's not at all what I'm trying to say, but I'm just saying, I was at the mercy of a lot of teachers. I'd find myself eating lunch with teachers sometimes, things like that. So it depends on the kind of people the kind of adults you have around you, because that can
make or break you.
Yeah, they can make or break you, because that can very easily turn into like a predatory situation. And I think the blindness of not wanting to talk to our queer kids or wanting to protect our queer kids leaves all kids at the mercy of random adults that they're left in charge of. And it's really, I don't know, it's like one of the most, what do you call it? My Roman Empire is the way that conversion therapy setups work in Kenyan schools. It's so sinister. I remember one of my friends, we were speaking about this. Actually, I feel like we were at a we were at an Uzima camp with you, and we were having these conversations, and there were different people bringing up some of the stories from high school and everything. And one of the stories that stuck to me, I remember, was like somebody speaking about how sometimes when a teacher would find you, or you'd end up on the lesbian list. Lesbian lists, my goodness.
I missed that.
You missed being there.
I missed the whole, I'm a late bloomer, so no one clocked me. I didn't even know.
Okay, so, honestly, me too, but it's because our school at Kwangana like an official list. But I remember somebody talking about how on the list, sometimes teachers would come and then tell you and the people on the list that mkuje, and then you show them what you were doing, you know, and you're like, and it's like adults telling this to children. So it's like, what kind of adults are these who, instead of, even if they wanasema eti wanataka kupunish you are being queer or whatever, what is it in that adult that makes it feel like they want to watch children do something that they've already, if you think it's so wrong, why would you then inflict it? It's very weird. I think it allows strange adults to play on weird fantasies, disgusting, like,
I don't think there's enough laws defending like protecting children in school. There's not enough. And a lot of times, like when you are in a Kenyan high school, the school, whatever is happening in school is law. Even your parents cannot, like, I went to a very, very strict girls' school, and I remember if anything ever happened and I called my parents, I never got the help I needed because the teachers and the administration would construe everything in such a weird, warped way. There's that thing like cops do when you go to report something, and then all of a sudden you know what you went to report, but by the time you're leaving, you feel like gaslit.
Yeah, like,
and no one does gaslighting better than Kenyan administrations of high schools.
They borrowed it from the colonialists, and that's why
they gaslight you to the extent that yes, you report something to your parent, but the time your parent leaves, you are the culprit.
Yeah,
you are the one that's in trouble. And I think like the other thing I wanted to bring up is that recently I found out that there's Kenyan queer kids that were taken to the chief to be beat up. Like corporal punishment. They want to beat the homosexuality out of you. And that really broke my heart because
I can't imagine.
The people I grew up with may not have necessarily been taken to like a chief's camp to be, yani umeandikiwa viboko sita every day after school. Like when you leave school, you go and get beat up. And I'm like, why on earth? It may not be religious, but what kind of impression does that kind of action leave on a teenager's mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, what are we saying? Like, it's okay to abuse people when you don't agree with their life, or what? Like, what are we teaching our kids?
Or even beating the homosexuality out of someone when they don't.
It's such a strange thing. Like, I usually wonder, and then, you know, the thing is, people will take someone to like conversion therapy, and then the way the language and the way they usually speak about it sounds like something. So they'll be like, just bring it. Like, you know, some of these two churches, I'm not gonna name nobody because I don't want no lawsuits. But some of these churches, these popular churches in Kenya, I feel like you'll see them bring your kid to therapy, and you will just talk to them, you know, make them know the way of the Lord. They make it sound like like you'll come down, you'll sit, watakupea chai. They never capture how violent and how horrible of an actual institution conversion therapy is. They make it sound like it's your kid ni amechafuka tu hapa, kuja tumpanguze itakuwa tu sawa. They don't talk about like the kind of psychological breakdown they have to do of your child to even get them to turn into like, people think that it's turning. I think it's genuinely just breaking someone down so badly that they get scared to say anything about themselves ever again.
And I feel like when someone is at their lowest and then you convince them of something, that isn't helping them, it's taking advantage.
It's manipulation.
I
agree.
So I was like, okay, they've kept asking me for years, and unfortunately, I was one of those kids that didn't necessarily have boyfriends, so there was nothing really to say. And even when I remember, like at some point, I had to like lie to my teenage friends that I had SEX and so that like so that like you belong, and they just make up stories. And because I used to watch so many movies, it wasn't like the hardest thing.
Yeah.
To kind of like.
Honestly, also I feel like when you're an imaginative kid, what creative writing? Like,
no,
I would convince you and myself.
Yeah. Anyway, so they hounded me, and I'm like, okay, what harm could it do? And plus, these are people like I've grown up with. We were like 2-3 years old together. That is like our relationship went that far back. And the moment that I showed them a picture from my partner's then WhatsApp, and they were like, wait, is this a boy or a girl? And I was like, what do you think? And then they were like, oh my god, how can you date a woman? Let's go, we take you to our pastor. Then I'm one of those people that used to call their pastors Papa. Forgive me, guys.
We listen and we slightly pretend that we're not judging. So like
they
you
were
guys had like a very
yeah,
close
so they were
relationship
like,
with
yeah,
your pastor
they
and
were
stuff.
like, let's go Wambewe na Papa and mom and whatnot. And
Mom was
I
like
grew
now like
the
his
wives,
wife.
yeah, the pastor's wife. And I remember clutching my pearls and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Kuombewa
Like I
is
expected
crazy.
this from like, older people. Older folks are like more rigid in their thinking. But I never in a million years expected like my best friend of about 20 plus years to tell me like, let's go, you get preyed on because you are queer.
That's
Or rather I was
disappointing.
seeing a girl. And if you look at our histories as queer kids, like it's so littered with such instances where like your parents kind of like figure out something. And I'm mentioning this not because like of the religious aspect, but my friends. You are my friend, you are my best friend. And the first thing you hear, your first thought when you hear that I am with a woman is, let's go get you prayed.
Kuombewa.
And that is how like our friendship ended.
I can't imagine how disappointing that is. Like one thing you were to
Yeah, just that one thing. I was like, now how can I come to you with anything else?
yeah.
And that was
like
my
you could
truth.
reduce into the one thing and you
Yeah.
find out in that moment.
And
20 years you could ew.
This is someone that we had spent like our entire childhood with, and like the biggest milestone of my adult life. You are not willing to hear. You wanna dismiss it as a prayer item.
As something childish, something that you should like grow out of. I can't imagine what that's like, to be quite honest. I feel like by the time I was figuring out my stuff, I had isolated myself to the point where the friendships I had that I lost didn't really mean that much. But I think it really hurts so different when it comes from a peer. Because even me, I find myself attack sahi finding myself like expecting more from my age mates, from people who I consider my peers. And it's always so jarring. Kwanza unajua venye sometimes ukishingi kwa kwa internet bubble, uko tu hapo wolo TikTok, you're like, oh my god, we're all friends, kumbaya. And then you meet somebody who's your age mate, and then and then they're like overtly homophobic to you, and it's always such like a like nasinga kuangalia like kama kuna cameras. I'm like, kwani
I'm not surprised by many things, but that is one thing that
really
kind of like hits me. Or even like women who are homophobic.
Like I'm not expecting you to be
I'm
like the
girl,
biggest ally,
yeah.
but girl, hate criming me on a random Tuesday is crazy.
And
like
those girlies that are homophobic are usually like very confident in people's comment sections, and I'm usually like,
and they're always
what are you
so
doing?
overtly homophobic.
Yeah.
Like they don't care. It's so disappointing. I think sometimes I even may find myself expecting women to be a bit, I don't know, like not nicer, but it's just like I thought we're like all sisters, you know, like we're just trying to survive patriarchy together.
Girl, yeah.
But then, hey, because straight women can be very homophobic. My God, my goodness, it's so
a moment of silence for the homophobic women.
Exactly, because what do you mean? I feel like when we're talking about high school, even a lot of that, remember the way teachers and older middle-aged teachers especially would have this specific disgust for lesbian students or students that they think are lesbians. Because honestly, sometimes those stories, a lele list was just konea watu, and we know that. But I feel like, I don't know, when straight women are homophobic, especially older straight women, it comes from this very puritanical, very like, what
like
about the children?
I waited for marriage to have
exactly.
sex.
And I think sometimes that's the most dangerous form of homophobia, even to this day. Do you know how scared I am to interact with, like, to interact with people's kids, like, and not even like etina, like, no, I just don't want anyone's mom to look and be like, you're influencing.
Actually, guys, I have a story.
There's specific homophobias like watakuitia wanaume wakuchape alafu waseme wateti walikuwa wanataka kuombea, like no.
So I'm gonna put one of my aunts on the spot. So
Tuambie, tell us the tea.
So one of my aunts is like the youngest of my mother's siblings. We have like a 10-year age gap, and we were like thick as thieves when I was growing up, and she was just like one of those people that I could relate to easiest among my uncles and aunties. So again, she's also nosy-ish. So one time I'm talking to my partner on the phone, the same partner, and I think on WhatsApp she kind of like saw the car
Emoji.
Not even emoji, like the profile picture, and like she was facing the other way from behind. But there's just something about like a woman, even if they're masculine,
You're
like, be like, what the fuck are you? Like, there's just that aspect of like, like something isn't okay. Mwanaume. So I think she was like, who is that? And then I was like, that is my babe. And then she was like, is your babe a girl? And then I was like, no, let me see that. And then she insisted, and then I was like, okay, cool, take it, check. And then actually she hadn't even quite clocked it was a woman. But you see the way you're talking on the phone. And then she was like in the matatu next to me. So she could hear like the sound is like, like it's a girl. And then now she was like, let me see the profile pic. Then she was like, oh, si mwanaume, oh, ni msichana. She insisted. And then I was like, cool, sawa, ni msichana. And then now she started with a whole other, me actually affect so much on homophobia. She was like, oh, you ni shetani, nini. Let's brush past that. Anyway, one or the other, people back home, like my extended family, found out that I was queer. And I remember like one of my aunties, now my another auntie, second last, was like every time I go home, I used to like sleep in her house in one of her beds, either hers or like a spare bed. And I remember her being, the next time I went home, she did not want me at her house.
Oh my god.
She absolutely, my auntie, my mother's sister. And you know that is like your mom.
Like that's insane.
I'm like, that's you don't want me in your house because I'm a lesbian.
But you were lesbian even the last time when
I know. So I'm like, and then let me tell you something. Even if it's my lesbianism, it's so my auntie.
Like, when you think I'm also into
Mama yangu mdogo. And I was like, I don't know, like that took me like 50 steps back.
No, I can imagine.
Because yes, we are queer, we love women, but trust me, it's not the immediate women in our families. We might have our issues, but
it's so traumatizing. This is not Alabama. It's so traumatizing. Even me, my mom has never done such things. Not specifically like that, but like situations where it's just like, stuck your influence, sister. Like, and it's like, what do you think I am?
It's usually happening.
Yeah, it's so disgusting. It makes me feel so like that feeling when someone I get that, because it makes me feel like naive, like meaning like I'm an animal, like I don't have any self-control. I just want vagina regardless of where it comes from.
I'm going to say something very, very wild. And
please say it.
Could this have a correlation of how like our family members, especially the adults, know that so there's a capacity within like family to abuse one another? And why is it like so visible when people are queer and not when people are straight? Because what does it mean that you, my auntie, you, my mama, you, my whomever adult in my life thinks that because I am a homosexual, I can do something to my other family members, my extended family members? Where is that expectation coming from?
Yeah, but then the uncles who actually do things, everybody is so silent about it.
All of a sudden they know nothing. They don't even wanna like,
they just
shut
say,
it down. So they are very aware of the attraction that shouldn't be happening, but
it's very frustrating, to be quite honest.
If you're that kind of an auntie, disgusting.
May I agree, honestly speaking. Like, such people, I hate that in African families, people can point out the queer person and they can point out the weird behaviors and they can point out the single mothers.
Or the pregnancies
the teen pregnancies.
The teens even don't know.
But then the teen pregnancies, they don't point out who did the getting the person pregnant. They just point out that this girl is now pregnant.
Yeah.
But and then when it comes to the abusers and the predators and the people who are beating their wives and the people who are like harassing their families, or like all of a sudden it's, I can't see, I'm blind. It's so frustrating as a queer person. Because unajua like ile feeling when you really figure out when you're queer and you start to realize, damn, I'm gonna lose some of these niggas. Like when I come out, a lot of these people that I'm interacting with right now on a familial level are probably not going to want anything to do with me. But then also seeing your uncle who makes you feel weird, and seeing your auntie who's not a good person, and seeing when you want to say all these things
in the same family.
So you guys can forgive each other's misgivings, some of them that should not be forgivable. But then my one thing about me is something that all of you can band together when you're mnachukiana.
Actually, I feel like that is now my Roman Empire.
Yeah, me too.
It is my Roman Empire, because I have seen like badly behaved uncles be given a place at the table in my Meru household, they are drunks, they are deadbeats, they sleep with people who are underage. They say hata unaweza enda unapewa land. But now because you're a homosexual, you're like,
that's the worst thing you can ever be. God forbid a woman loves another woman. Like, oh my God.
Consenting.
Imagine. Most of them can't even. Actually, kikuuliza consent ni nini, well, let me just.
I think the other aspect of conversion therapy I'm going to highlight is like when people bring now our traditions. They're like, oh, sisi hiyo si Kiafrika, you shouldn't do that in mambo ya wazungu. And I'm like, have you gone through your history?
Like one history book.
Just one history book. Because a lot of times people are very they just wanna like read about the white man history. But no one is curious about like our native roots. No one is curious to like investigate what we did pre-colonial. Everyone is just like they wanna forget what happened before the white man and sometimes it's not even like the person's this like our immediate society's failure. I know like there's so much history that's missing.
Yeah.
Like our authentic history.
And was intentionally destroyed.
Yeah, and it was intentionally destroyed. But in this day of the internet,
honestly.
In this day of the internet, what is your excuse for not knowing African history? What is your excuse? You have 8 hours to be on TikTok. No.
I'm sorry, did you just call my name? No, I agree.
Yeah, as a doom scroller myself, I try like even in my doom scrolling and use it as an excuse, obviously, to learn something.
Yeah.
Learn something. Like you don't always have to like follow TikTok gossip. But then, let's talk about how TikTok is accurate about gossip. Like it will give you receipts. I love TikTok.
I'm telling you, you see one video, 4 videos later, you'll find the original story.
I remember sometimes like, they blue ink it. You know,
actually, so you don't even have to go looking.
You don't need to search.
I agree.
So, if there's any part of our queer history that you want to learn about, you can definitely find it.
And I see a lot of content creators, like black queer content creators especially, who are very intentional about making like content around what Africa pre-colonial queer identity and meaning looked like. So,
yeah, for sure. So if you're curious, even if you don't want to like learn from a queer person, you can learn from
generally, because
generally.
there's a lady on Kenyan TikTok who does amazing content about different cultures and how they related, and even like during colonial but pre-colonial as well. When if I find her name, but it's so lovely.
Do you know anything that concerns queerness within your ethnic background?
Do you know? Not really. Not really. I'm Luya, and I'm sure there is. I feel like there is, but I've never seen anything explicitly that specifically speaks to my tribe. And it's usually, I don't know, it's really disappointing because sometimes when I sit down, and as much as I love like the lesbian label and all that, I sit down and I wonder, people who loved women the way I love women in like 12 something in my culture, like down my bloodline, I wonder what language they use to, you know, like how did they identify? What did they call themselves? How did they love women? Even if homophobia did exist, how did they navigate it? Because one thing that we know is like even in the most homophobic corner of the world, people are living together, they're loving together. I would love to have like solid evidence or even just some writings about what that looked like, but I've never really found it.
So like some time ago I found out that like within the Meru context there was like a seers, and the seers usually were almost always like effeminate men. So and this August, the end of August, we have like a gods and goddesses thing happening where we will be honoring like African spirituality, where cutting like African spirituality in correlation to queerness and what that looked like in the African context.
Really
and cool. I would love to see how like we translate like this thing that we've been put down for so long and empower ourselves, because in so many like cultures around the world it's for poor whiteness. Like being queer was something to be looked up to. Even like within the Indian religion, there's like aspects of, there's gods who are like both male and female,
Hindu,
right? So and there's a name for that, and every culture, even Egyptian culture, there's a name for that. In Meru culture, there's a name for that. Another country in Africa, there's always like this repetition of like two spirits, divinities that were worshipped. So why is it such a bad thing now?
Yeah.
Right? So, and we need to like pause as a people and take back our power, because if you keep on showing up as wounded beings, if you keep up showing up as people that want to be given permission to exist, what does that mean in the long run?
If you give somebody the power to even give you permission, that means they can take it away.
Yeah, and dictate what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
Yeah, I get that. I think my thing is, even as I think about what pre-colonial like queer ancestry looks like for me, you know, people are like, oh, queerness is an African, it's Western, it's modern, whatever. These are the same arguments that I feel like have been against about queerness. Like even in the Bible, that's what they say, you know? For as long as queer people have existed, which is forever, for as long as queer people have existed, there has been people who do not agree with our existence. So like, so what? Like when people are like, but even if I was to do the most deep research and I found out that in my culture, I am the first lesbian who has ever existed, I literally would not care, and I don't think that would negate my queerness at all. Like, it's so frustrating that they feel like straight people don't have to back up centuries of their existence in order to be like, they're here now because, like, what if nobody was there? What if I'm the first one? Maybe I'm the first one, and I would love to be. I'm very proud to be if I am. And I know I'm not. That's the thing. I don't need anyone else's validation. That queerness is an African thing, usually feels like something people wield as a weapon against us. Like denial of culture, you know? Like that's something that when you're trying to grow up, especially as a queer African, which I think is not something that Western, or rather something that I can't speak to, because we have a lot of Western queer culture, like embedded in the global queer culture. A lot of it is the language we use, everything. So for me, it's just like, to be quite honest, I don't care if I'm the first one, and I don't care if it's an African, because I'm African and I'm here right now and I'm a lesbian. So African lesbians do exist just by virtue of that.
Us existing.
Yeah, it feels frustrating to have to defend my Africanness constantly, but it's like, tunaishi hapa, mi sijawahi toka huku, sijawahi ishi anywhere else but here. How can I be anything but here? Like from here, you know?
I think what is most kind of like annoying is that is only relevant when someone is queer. Because are we walking around in sheepskin? Are we walking around in animal skin?
I must be Becky with blonde hair. Mask.
So what do you mean, like we are being an African? Are you wearing like your traditional regalia? Are you wearing sisal? So why are we pretending like someone is being
Some of these people can't even speak their mother tongue and you're telling me about an African. Like what? No.
You don't even honor your native gods.
You think they're demonic, in fact. You call your native practices demonic.
Exactly.
And then you want to, I hate it so
yeah, and I, as someone that grew up in a very like we are very close like to our roots. Growing in a Meru household, I keep on like going back there because a lot of times my father used to like speak to me in Meru, so that like he makes sure like we know the language, me and my siblings. And he always like was very close to his roots in terms of the music he listened to, in terms of being very close to his grandmother. And I see like sometimes even like our African parents like living into like our cultures to try and like cast us out with it. And you're like, I'm going to give you kerumi. Kerumi in Meru is a curse. So you want to cast me in my language, right? Because I want to choose to do the thing that I want to do. And it's not even, and a lot of times I keep on saying choice, but I feel like the thing that most people are mad about with queerness is that you have choice. Because a lot of us, like the way like women with an X, in this context, the way that we're not raised to have our own opinions. We're not raised to have our own households. We're not raised to make decisions whether to have children or not. And
we're not raised to center
ourselves. We're not raised to center ourselves, and we're not raised. Even the men think they have a choice. But if you're stuck with 5 kids and a woman you don't even love,
providing
how much choice do you have?
For real, because you complain about it on the internet every day.
When it's not even your idea. When the moment you think about going home, you dread it. How much choice is that? How free are you? So when they see a homosexual in their 6-inch heels starting in town,
they're jealous. That's
you're like, how fuck?
It's jealousy. It's jealousy.
It must be jealousy, because if you can't even like go to have like a steak without thinking about school fees and whatnot and putting your affairs in order.
I can honestly, I'd be mad as fuck too. Like sometimes I see even straight men and stuff when they're mad in the comments of like feminine gay men, and I'm like, I bet you wish you could just wear a pink shirt without the mental gymnastics that you're going through. I bet you wish you could just go and do your nails and be left alone. Like as much as you are perpetuating these things, they are choking you. You are choked. That's why you're so miserable when you see another man who has the daring to be like, actually manhood is whatever I want it to be, not what other men are doing.
And when I think about like the physical bodies we're in, I think the only difference between me and the next man is
literally genitalia. Like,
because you literally have like, you're cosplaying masculinity and manhood, and we're spiritual things. We are spirits in a sack with bones and blood, and you just wanna and
have you watched? There's this not watched. Wow, my internet brain is rotting. Have you read? There's this book called These Letters End in Tears.
No.
It's so good. If you're a reader, I don't know if you are. It's, I mean, Italia for sure. Let me tell you. But it's so good. It's an African book about like a lesbian.
Yeah.
Was it Senegalese, baby? Where were they from again? Nigeria. They were Nigerian.
Oh, Nigerians can write.
They can
Sisters!
write.
Nigerians
can write.
You have powerful stories, don't keep them inside.
Wow,
Yeah.
so real. This book, it was so good. Like the way it begins, it takes us to the story of like these two teenage girls who like kind of fall in love.
Yeah.
One of them is a Christian, she's the feminine one, and then the more masculine one comes from a very Muslim conservative household.
Yeah.
And like the way they write, it's just so it's so nice, man. Because the main character, like the person we read the story through, is the femme. And when she was describing like her first interaction with like, it was like, it's giving me, like the first time I saw a stud, I was like, oh, what are these feelings? I have never had that before. It was so real. But then there's this aspect of the masculine woman. She was called Fatty. Like Fatima, but she went by Fatty. Her family was her brother especially, they were so staunch. Like her brother was like, I don't know if it's studying, I don't know much about Muslim culture, but he was studying to be an imam when he ended up being an imam.
Oh my god.
And you know, like of course she was a very masculine and like very masculine to the point where like when they're describing her, they make it very clear that she's the kind of person where when you look at her, you can't even tell if it's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, you most likely think it's a boy. And so her family, of course, you can imagine coming from a conservative family like that. And the way the story ends, like what her brother chooses to do to her in order to like, I don't know, prove something is so, and it's not even like essay, it's just, oh my god, like it makes me think about how our families, I always wonder, because for me, even a random person that I meet on the street, I have never been inclined, and it's somebody who maybe I don't fuck with this person, you know? Like when I see them on the streets, you know, I'm like, it's on sight, but I will not come and physically harm you because who am I? Like, who gave me that right?
Yeah.
It really shocks me how in families it's so normalized to isolate and even like cause abuse, and I mean insane level of abuse to your queer family members by just because they're queer. Like some of the stories you hear of what people in their families did to them. It's so horrifying, and it makes me wonder what kind of people are you, because the same people who are doing these things to you will tell you that you're the inhuman one. They'll tell you you're the one who's sinning, but they're violating you in ways that makes you sit down and wonder, surely what I've done, like it cannot be more evil than this.
So as someone that grew up in Isiolo, there's like a lot of like Islam influences in my upbringing, and I remember that my peers when we were growing up were very terrified of like their bigger brothers, and in that you see like the way like in a household, like maybe your mom or your dad, one of them is responsible for disciplining the kids. In a Muslim household it's different because your big brother could beat the shit out of you, and your mother or like whichever adult was in that house they wouldn't say shit about it, and they would get away with it. So a lot of times growing up we used to hear like someone was possessed. Someone was you remember the stories?
It's a body.
No, in my hometown it's not stories, it's things that happen.
Like for real.
Yeah, like unaambiwa unaenda kutolewa mashetani and then you'll be taken to like a mosque, and then like the maalim or whomever was like the religious leader would like beat the shit out of you. Like even if like you had like a genuine mental illness, you'd be beaten up with religion and whips and whatnot, and you'd spend like all of these hours in a room with adults beating the shit out of you. And the moment that you mentioned like the Nani Fati was Muslim and there was Muslim like influences, and I'm not saying this is like all the only way that Islam exists, but I'm saying where I grew up, like it was very common to hear like a child being like a bad child and like having the full force of religion fall on them, and it wasn't like only just like the kusomea Quran. And it used to be like coupled up with kusomea Quran and physical harm. And it was allowed, and a lot of times it was even like the parents volunteering their children. And if the mother or the family member who brought the child was feeling like it's too much, anaambiwa aende nyumbani, tutakuletea mtoto. So yeah, when it comes to violence, and even like within the Somali context, I see like a lot of kids whose older siblings have kind of like unalived them because they were doing something on the internet that they did not agree with. Like there's a pride there, there's a religious like kuna kitu utapata kwenye religion when you unalive someone that is seeming ungodly, right? And I'm like, make that make sense.
Yeah,
make
honestly,
that make sense.
I don't understand like religious violence, especially. I feel like I can't speak too much to Islam because I can't say I've grown up around that much influence of it, so I don't know much about it. But in general, I feel like the Abrahamic religions are such violent institutions.
Yeah, they
even
let
Christians,
down so many.
because I think sometimes
people.
Christians like to sit down and point fingers and be like, "Oh my God, look at those guys are doing honor killings and they're so bad." But when you think about even growing up in a Christian household and the kind of people that we were interacting with, it's so normalized to be violent. And I saw something on Instagram recently, I think I reposted it, and it was a quote that said something about like, you see the way we're dealing with the protests and fascist governments right now, Christianity and Abrahamic religions, the way they're structured, it's structured to make all this seem like it's okay, because at the end of the day it makes punishment and authoritarianism the end all be all, you know. It's like okay, huyo mtu ameua mtu lakini huyo mtu alikuwa sinful, so it's okay, you know. Now you sort of assumed that power, and I think a lot of religious people move like that when it comes to queer persons. They're like, I would never be allowed to inflict this kind of violence on anyone else, but because people hate you the most, I can do what I want to you and nobody will do anything about it because low-key they think you deserve it. I think it's how families move with their queer kids. I think it's how predatory teachers move with queer kids. I think it's how predatory like teens move with like new ninis. You know, like wale mafumfos when you're under 19, like, and their type used to be 13-year-old form ones and things like that, you know. It opens you up to that because people know from when you're a queer kid, even you yourself, you know, it feels like this thing where everyone has decided because you are queer or because I have thought you're queer, you are on your own.
Yeah.
Nobody's affording you protections. Wanajua hautaki kwenda kuambia mamako because mamako atasijui. You know, they'll disown you. So it's like a situation where even if you're being bullied by people, they know you won't go tell on them because going to tell on them will exactly, it'll cause you more problems.
So I feel
it leaves you isolated.
I feel like what you've said, like what is worse than a Christian household taking their child and disowning them, throwing them out to the wolves. I don't think like parents with queer children ever sit down to factor in what it means to actually leave your child to the devices of the world. Because what does that register in the child's mind? What does it mean for the people that are looking from outside, seeing that you can do that to your child? You people that disown queer children give everyone permission to harm them.
You co-sign that.
Yeah, you co-sign it. Like if there was like a sentence that you wrote, you're the one that put the stamp. You put the stamp, and that in itself is equivalent to killing.
It is. It is. Honestly speaking, it absolutely is. And I hate the most violent thing to me, I think, as a queer person is usually how they want to convince you it's rooted in love. Unakumbuka hiyo scene ya Rafiki, like nini kinakena wakikemewa and shit like that. Na nakumbuka nikiwatch na street people kwa the movies that one week yenye walituanbania. Na watu walikuwa wanacheka like hiyo scene and shit like that, right? People thought it was funny. It was like I don't know, comedic relief, I guess, for them. And I remember I was there with my friend, like two of my friends, all of us were queer persons. I'm telling you, we were sobbing, and it was not like okay, it was funny that guy had like an accent, but it was not even like. And then wakikuliza, they'll be like, but it's just, first of all, I'm coming chapa before that, so let's talk about that. But even that is just this insistence that I love you, that's why I'm banning you, I love you, that's why I'm throwing you out, I love you, that's why I'm like hiring somebody to come and essay you to prove something. I love you, and it's such a confusing feeling to be in a household that swears they love you, but at the same time feels like they would throw you to the wolves immediately. And I don't know, like, as a queer person, honestly, I think it leaves us so vulnerable, and it causes a lot of issues.
And it warps our ideas of love, because a lot of us are stuck
it's
in
why
very
we're
unhealthy,
all codependent. I swear to God.
We are in very unhealthy cycles, but we can't recognize it because we are used to so much violence and so much hatred and so much all of these things that are wrapped in love, and we told this is what love looks like.
Yeah,
well, in reality, it's not.
That's so real. It normalizes it. It even influences like venye nakumbuka sasa if you think back to like some of the relationships you used to have when you were like 17, 18 for me personally, about 18, 19, 20, I think a lot of them were rooted in two really, really damaged kids trying to save each other, and it ends up with y'all just replicating some really toxic,
and making sense of them
and trying to make sense of them. And I remember feeling like you're trapped in this relationship where it's like, okay, you don't even have time to really sit down and be like, do we like each other? Are we going somewhere? Because it's like, okay, one of you has been kicked out, so now it feels like you're trying to save each other from the entire world, and you're literally like 12 years old. It leaves you in a place where you can't even actually objectively look at this relationship and like, this person is not good, or I'm not good for this person.
We can never be afforded to like that time to figure out like, is this a good fit for me?
Because that's already all you have. Yeah, it feels like that's all you have. The choices look
like so slim, and a lot of times you find like queer folk are usually like behaving like there's two of us, because in reality there could be two of us, because there's not that much leeway to even like discover. And I'm sure like so many other queer people are closeted for that reason, because you feel like there's not enough room for you to be your full self.
Yeah, I agree, honestly speaking. And then it makes every like interaction with even the first queer or two queer persons you find, it makes you feel like I remember my first couple of queer friends, I feel like they could have convinced me to do anything. And I do mean anything. Like, it was the first time in my entire life where I felt like I was seated somewhere with people who were like, you come as you are, and that's cool. So I don't sit down and think, okay, but they were like 10 years older than me. I was 17. Why? Like, me at 25 right now, the only 17-year-old I know is my sister. Like, I have no business speaking to children that age. So looking back, I'm like, but in that moment, it was like, oh my God, these are older queers, and they're people like me. They're the only people in this world who understand what it's like to be me. At that point, hawezi ambia like your older cousins, they're homophobic. I didn't have an older sister because I'm the oldest one. And obviously my mother is not somebody I was going to talk to that about. So it's like the only older figures that are accepting and affirming end up being very predatory, maybe queer persons.
Let me tell you something. So along the lines of dating human beings, I dated like someone that who was involved with a 33-year-old. At that time when I met her, she was 22, and they had been dating someone since like they were 17. And even like during that relationship, I had to almost like fight for her with that other person, because these adults are usually very impressionable to them. They look up to them, and even like severing that relationship is usually such a task, because
they low-key become your mom.
They put their clothes in a 17-year-old. And a lot of times this happens because the queer kids are usually like masculine, and then the other person is usually feminine, and they could clock you. Like, they could find you like in a bunch of kids, and they take you up, and then you wife someone and this person has a kid. And even there's another certain scenario of a femme who has like 4 kids, and then there's a 5th kid with a stud who is 17. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing?
Like, what the fuck are we doing? Let me tell you, please, lesbians, stop telling me it doesn't matter because we're both women. You're going to jail.
Keep your hands off of children.
No.
Keep your fucking filthy hands off of children.
Honestly, please.
Yeah.
please. Like, as much as you're
We do
trying to
not
be a
claim
mentor.
that. And
And like, it's so horrible because you have the space, especially like when you're in a privilege, but you have the space to maybe be a more affirming presence or to leave kids alone, honestly.
Yeah.
Because me personally, I don't claim to want to be anyone's mentor because I don't really have that emotional capacity.
Yeah.
I don't have that nurturing spirit. I will get annoyed and I will kick you out. So I just don't bother. So like for me to now start going to look at in Konaongelesha, unipate niko kwa DMs as some fucking random 17-year-old. Alafu nikwambie, no, Kome, I'm mentoring them. Mentoring them for what? I'm in the middle of mentoring my god.
You can't mentor like someone's sexuality.
It's so strange. It's so strange to me, honestly speaking. I think, and it sucks because I feel like queer kids are in need of guidance. They really are, honestly speaking. I think it would have made a world of difference for me to have like a genuine older sister figure in that moment of where I was, that would actually, somebody who's not trying to like, you know, fuck me, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Somebody who's actually like, oh damn, you don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
Somebody who's like, when I was 17, my mom kicked me out. This is how I managed that.
Yeah.
When I was 17, I was in an abusive relationship with somebody my age. This is how I managed it. Not mtu mwenye ako like, now that you have no one, we kuja. Now ujue mimi nikikuacha, now you'll have no one at all.
Oh my god, they're weaponizing it.
I think when it comes to conversion therapy, to be quite honest, my advice to queer persons would be to be very careful with some of these things, these therapies and whatnot. Just when somebody is offering you something that feels like they're trying to change your identity, sit down and think for yourself. You know, and I know this is not always as easy because sometimes when you're a minor, that's what I do, like uko kwa hiyo nyumba, but try in the small pockets of acceptance you have. Come on, you online, we honestly have organizations. You know, if you're old enough, reach out, try find resources. It can feel so much worse, but the whole point is that isolation. The reason why they want you to feel isolated, the reason why they keep telling you nobody's ever gonna love you, you're never gonna have anyone, it is very intentional because then you have nothing to do but be at their mercy. And I think sometimes there's a lot of power as a queer person in just reclaiming that, honestly speaking, there's nothing wrong with myself and I don't care what any of you say. And there's also nothing wrong with choosing to say absolutely nothing about your queerness when you live in really dangerous situations. It's okay. Hata kama mtu amekuja amekuuliza hivi, we mdanganye if it's saving your life. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Lie if you have to.
Yeah.
I don't think coming
safety
out
first.
is safety first, to be quite honest.
Your physical safety first. I think like my next point will be to queer adults who are afraid of like having queer conversations with their therapist. It's your money. You are the customer. You're the person giving these people work. You cannot be there at your paying for therapy, but you're afraid your therapist will find out you're queer.
For real.
You have agency.
You
can literally
expensive.
and
the
therapy
cheapest
is
ones are like
so expensive
1,500.
to like stay there and pay someone and you're giving them your information, yani shingo upande, or like kind of like hiding some things about you. You can't be in therapy paying money and being afraid that this person will judge you. And especially if like this person, your therapist specifically is religious coded. Yeah, remove yourself from that situation. You're no longer like that child that is looking for people to save it. You're the savior. You're the only one that can remove yourself from like sticky situations. Yeah.
I think we get trapped in that child
mindset.
We
do, and we think like we can't do anything about it. You actually can. You're the adult now.
You can walk away and be like, fuck you, actually, give you back my money.
Like I will actually report you to like I'll blast you on social media for this.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're a kid, or if you're someone that has been sort of like you've been fixed in a relationship with people because of your sexuality, that they know, oh, this kid is queer, and the way that we can limit those kinds of urges is to like marry you off. I am so sorry. You absolutely didn't deserve that. And I hope like somewhere along this journey in this lifetime, you can figure out a way to remove yourself from that situation. And I hope that, you know, like some of us queer kids who are fixed up with, you know, men or put in marriages, some of us are fortunate enough to run away, and it's never too late. You could be 60, you could be 50, you could be 30, you could even be 80. It doesn't mean like your life is wrapped up.
Yeah.
At any time, you can exit a marriage that isn't serving you or that isn't your idea.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it. My parting shot would just be find the peace within yourself and know the power of loving yourself. I think some of the most queer lovely moments I've had have been those moments where I'm just reading a random book and I feel seen, or those moments where I sit with myself and I'm just like, thank God I existed, that's enough. So tap into that. Don't let anybody make you feel like you deserve to die just because you're queer. That's a lie. In fact, you should live just because you're queer.
Yeah. That, and you don't necessarily need anyone's permission to be yourself. If it's not putting you in physical danger, if it's not, doesn't mean like you get cut off by your family. Everything else, you're the person at the door. You're the one that gives you permission. The permission is coming from within you. It's not coming from anything outside of you. So if every time you're looking out for things outside of you to give you permission, then you'll always be hunchback. You'll always have bad posture because you're waiting for something outside of you more powerful than you, and that thing doesn't exist.
That's extremely true. I think that's actually the best place
to
stop it.